Good afternoon. I'm delighted to introduce you this afternoon to Priscilla, a journalist turned PR expert and founder of a business that works with brands to achieve visibility and customer engagement. Speaking to us as an insider with all of the knowledge and through the lens of both the consumer and the media. So hello and welcome to Top Drawer, Priscilla. It's wonderful to have you here, especially as it's such a crazy busy time for journalism right now, which I'm sure you're going to share a little bit about with us. And on that note, I'd love you to start by just sharing a little bit of your background with us.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm Priscilla. Some of you I know some faces here. Yes, I'm a journalist. I remain a journalist, but I am now also helping all of you understand how journalists think and what we want to see. So when you want to appear in the media or promote yourselves as businesses, these are the sort of things that you've got to do. I started this business really because in the lockdown, as most stories go these days, I had lots of independent businesses and small businesses who I'm a huge supporter of and I buy from myself ask me, how can I increase my visibility? How can I be acknowledged? Other people seem to be featured all the time and I'm not. I've got this amazing business or idea, I've got wonderful products, but I don't know how to find my customers. And, this business of mine started because I knew the answer to that. I remain a journalist, so the inside knowledge is hopefully up to date. I've got a lot of journalist friends who are quite cross that I keep spilling our trade secrets. But in any case, yes, I remain a journalist and I am a huge supporter of the press. The press has been dying a very slow death for the last, I suppose decades, but in the last 10 years especially. But there's a positive aspect to that because the online world has hugely increased, which means it increases all of your opportunities to be found and scouted and heard about. And really, I feel it is my job, because I love it so much, to teach people how to communicate better. So what is your product and how are you going to find your customer? Because we are all out there, by the way.
Absolutely. So basically you're saying that PR should take equal precedence alongside all of the other aspects of somebody's strategy for their business. So what are the best ways to seek PR for a brand?
Okay, good question. Okay, so PR, people usually absolutely freak out at those two letters because they think, I don't have time, I don't know how, journalists are scary, and they never reply, which is partially true. But we'll get on to that in a minute. But PR is not just about getting into the press. PR is how you look. So this is an analogy everyone might relate to. Imagine you wake up in the morning and you're feeling horrific, maybe a hangover, maybe something else. You go to your local shop in slippers and an appalling pyjama, looking like death, and you bump into your former school adversary or an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, and you sort of kick yourself and you think, God, why didn't I clean my face or change my shoes? And that's PR, always looking your best, always being ready to face a customer. There are customers, there are buyers, there are purchasers, there are people who are interested absolutely everywhere. One of the reasons why I think PR has had a bit of a bad rep, and I'm not here to trash social media at all, but social media has been a bit of a downfall because while it does give us a lot of amazing advantages, and I can't imagine a life now without things like Instagram. But I've got this ball here. It's not a stress ball, don't worry, everyone. It's there for a reason. But the way I like to describe PR is if you imagine one of these spikes on this ball, it's a baby toy, being Instagram. It's wonderful that at the end of one of those spikes, you've got a huge audience and lots of people buying your products. But what about all of the others? Because at the end of every spike, there are so many more customers. They really are. You need to think about the way people used to buy in 2020 when we were all scrolling, thinking up ideas like I did, like I'm sure so many of you did. Instant purchases, perhaps making oneself feel better, buying lots of new things and sharing. There was a lot of sharing going on during lockdown periods. And that's lovely. But social media, there are fewer of us at home scrolling. Look, you're all here. And there are many more customers at the end of these spikes. They're not all on the phone and in social media. And so PR is scary, but I don't know what's made it scary. PR is so important. If you spend any time investing in your business, in the staff members that you have, in the retailers, in your suppliers, the conversations you have with anyone, a good website, whatever it is, you also need to invest in your PR, because ultimately PR is just how you communicate to the people who will eventually buy your products. And just to add to that, the reason why I find social media, Instagram, a little bit tricky, when the question I get asked a lot is, Priscilla, I've got good numbers, everyone likes me, they like my products, but the sales are plateauing a bit. It's usually because, unfortunately, the Instagram situation is that, a lot of people will find your products wonderful and will like your reels, and they will share them, and they will, talk about them until Christmas, but they won't buy your product. Why? Because they've already bought it. This business began because an artist said to me, "Can you help me write my newsletter?" And I said, "Of course I will." And there I was, copywriting away. And her art was circa 800, 900,000 pounds and up. And I said to her, I went back to her and I said, "Can I ask you, who does this newsletter go to?" And she said, "Well, it goes to all of the people who've bought my art." And I said, "Okay, well, that's interesting, because let's just have a think about a PR perspective." She was not expecting me to say that. She was thinking, "Oh God, here we go, strap yourself in." But I said, "But, the likelihood that someone else is going to keep buying £1,000 worth of art every single time they see your newsletter is quite low. You need to look for the new audience, And I think on social media, a lot of people they like, basically, popularity is not success. So if you are a popular brand on Instagram, that's wonderful. I wish I were as popular as you. But are your sales good? And if they're not, and only you know that, and that's a personal thing you need to think about. If your numbers are good, you're reaching your targets, don't do anything different. But if there's something niggling away at you, you probably just need to try one of the news spikes, or in conjunction with whatever you're doing. And don't forget, journalists scout Instagram a lot, so don't please stop doing reels and all of that. But just think of the other ways. Where is your audience? Who buys your products? What ages? Are they now consuming their information in a different way? These are the questions you have to ask yourself.
Absolutely, and I know we're going to chat in a little bit more detail about social a bit later on. I don't feel like we could have a conversation around strategy for your business without talking about the current financial climate that we're facing as a country, the cost of living crisis, that we're hearing about everywhere. I don't know if you saw Holly Tucker's news yesterday that she's closing her shop. It's beginning to hit our community in ways that we couldn't imagine. So how do we approach PR for our businesses from that perspective?
Okay, so I'm going to say the thing nobody wants me to say, which is that you've got to do more PR. It's more important than ever to get the message out, whatever message it is that you sell. Eco-sustainable fashion, or you're very into X, Y, or Z. When I was on newspapers and working full time, I was in constant contact with PR agencies. I mean, it was almost a bête noire. No one liked each other, but we needed each other to survive. They gave us the information. We did a pick and mix and printed what we wanted, and but those PR agencies do a sterling job. They are very expensive, and I think now it's a personal choice, but you know what the margins are of your business. PR agencies are not going to be charging you necessarily a lot less, because they are businesses themselves. They're having to evolve and adapt around what's going on out there outside these walls. So if you are a small business, an independent business who wants to retain quite a lot of the money that you're earning and making, you need to consider learning a bit of the DIY aspect. I think that's really important. I think back in 2020, and obviously before that, the birth of businesses, the boom was huge, as you all know. Some have shut, some are still going by the grace of God or whatever. But, now more than ever, those businesses will feel the pinch. But it doesn't mean they're going to fail. There's no reason why this is one thing I really just want to get across to everyone all the time, that being under-acknowledged or ignored by the media or ignored by customers is not something you just have to sit there and succumb to and think, well, we're a small business, there are loads of people selling what we do, so that's that. No, put some welly into it and do a bit of DIY work. And I think with the economic crisis, yes, people are not doing the instant purchasing that I just mentioned as much. Of course, there's, by the way, the ultra high net worth network is still there hugely. Luxury does not diminish in markets like this, but the smaller people, as ever, the middle people, get squashed. If you don't want to shut your business or change or adapt, you've got to adapt with it. There are other forms of PR that will help you push yourself forward. So, PR is not about getting into the press only. It's about appearing in podcasts, so a different kind of audience. Thinking about the spikes, think about someone who doesn't buy newspapers, doesn't have Instagram because they're, 55 and decide they're a dinosaur and will not download apps, but they might listen to podcasts on the train to work. Local, regional press and local radio. As journalists on papers at the Evening Standard, we used to get all of our best stories from the regional. It was very embarrassing, actually, the regional borough press, which so many have shut down. But the Kensington and Chelsea newspapers, they would give us the best stories, and journalists are looking at those things all the time. Collaborations also. You've all probably collaborated on Instagram a bit, or had a live with someone, or shared a post on Instagram together, and you've seen, I'm sure, I don't know all of you here, but I'm sure you've seen the benefits of that. And you can collaborate in a much wider and larger fashion, and that shouldn't be off the table. So in the economic downturn, firstly, it is always a bit more of a catastrophe, because remember, journalists need to fill pages and column inches. So, the more exciting the story, the more likely you're going to pick it up. So, first of all, take a deep breath. And second of all, there's no need to feel that it's going to go wrong. If you really want your idea to be noticed and you want your business to survive, it's perfectly possible.
Do you think, or do you have any kind of tips or ideas around messages that are appropriate, that don't feel like, you're exploiting, a crisis if you're a brand, but you want to be talking about, a new launch, or, for example, also with what's going on at the moment with the Queen, we were talking about this earlier. Do you have any, kind of super quick tips that you could share around what's appropriate and what's not?
Yeah. Tell you what really works is getting into the mind of a customer, and that's quite hard to do, but it happens all the time. And my best example happened at the beginning of July, and I've told all of my one-to-one clients ever since this story, which is true. I came back from a staycation, and I walked past Cook, that shop that sells the frozen meals, delicious food, and I always thought of Cook as a brand that you would buy someone who's just had a baby and doesn't have time to cook. And outside there was a banner saying, "Take us on your staycation so you don't have to cook." And I thought, damn, I didn't think of that. So clever. Anyway, my holiday was over, but I'll remember for next year. Yeah, but you see, that particular banner got into my head. I thought, that's so relevant to me. It's kind of actually irrelevant where I am, which city I am in. Who has just died, what's on the front cover, are we going into a recession? None of that mattered in that precise moment. Might have been late for pickup too, doesn't matter. The point was that the story got into my head, and I now keep telling everyone, so now Cook should actually be paying me for this. But, it's about, you kind of have to you've got to think about how you're sold to every day, especially accidentally, by all sorts of brands. So anything that you see at a bus stop. Maybe some of us are old enough to remember that famous advert, I think it was Halls or Lockett. Everyone should be paying me, actually, where there's a man kissing a woman's neck in a lift. And it was about, that eating a lozenge was almost like having your neck kissed. Maybe I'm the only one who remembers that. But anyway, it's really effective marketing, it's effective advertising. So if you can get into the mind of someone with a storyline, you're doing really, really well. What is happening out there when you're telling these stories is actually irrelevant, because even if there is a national crisis, your son or daughter will still have to go to school tomorrow or next week or next month with named socks. And if there is a business, which I know Named Socks is an excellent business, that prints the name, again, they should be paying me, into children's socks, those socks still need to be bought and worn. It's sort of irrelevant what's going on around. What you need to, that awful phrase of stay in your lane is very important. If you are confident in what you sell and that you feel that customers need it and can make use of it, you just need to keep spouting it. I think I said to you on the phone a few weeks ago, the word amnesia is really important. People forget everything. They forget what you do, they forget your name, they forget your age, they forget the last time you saw them. You feel they took in your whole life story. Guess what? They've probably forgotten everything. So repeating, regurgitating is so important, which is kind of where Instagram comes in. There, it's fantastic to be able to constantly repeat. But it is, one day someone will wake up and see your brand in a newspaper, a Sunday supplement, on Instagram, and think, you know what, that's exactly what my sister needs for her 40th. You know, and you just have to keep, you almost have to, you're on a soapbox on your own, and I think, don't let the economic crisis diminish your message. Never say anything negative like, I know it's really tough out there, so we're going to be doing a big discount. No, 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 no. Just be confident. Because, you know, everyone knows the more expensive a product, the more you think, oh, it's going to last longer, I should buy that. Yeah. That's silly, right? That's absolutely silly, but that's how it works.
Mm. And what about the next 7 days? How should we be navigating between now and next Monday?
The only answer to that is do what feels correct. I think I was just saying a second ago that for the for national papers, for print, at this stage, after these first initial days, it's really hard to continue with the coverage. A, because a lot has already been said. B, there's going to be a lot of predictions as to how the funeral will go. But C, there's a lot going on out there, and as journalists, you have to kind of slightly go back to normal. So half of the newspapers now are back to, oh, isn't it really depressing out there? And autumn is coming. So, but it's really, it's just a question of, it's you. But, you know, again, you've got targets and margins. No one's going to think how absolutely appalling that they mentioned a dress during this 7-day period. No. Because that dress, someone will see it and one day, just one morning think, do you know what, that's perfect for my daughter or something. And that's what, you know, you're there for sales. You're not there to reflect. Yeah. So absolutely. Do what you feel is right.
Perfect. Whilst we're just kind of talking in this area, let's just touch on a confidence piece. So brands might be intimidated by the press, or, you know, kind of feel like, you know, maybe they're not at the right level or don't have the right message. Do you have any inside thoughts around, you know, kind of if you're dubious about, you know, kind of what your strategy should be?
Journalists are usually out of ideas.
Good tip.
So just pitch. You'd be amazed at how many ideas they need to have in their top drawer. Okay, I can give you an example. So being on national newspapers, pretty scary at times. So you, at 8:35 p.m., you think you might finally be able to think about getting your coat and going home, and then an editor will come around and rip it up and say, no, don't like that person. So sort of 6 hours work will have just gone. Or I can tell you also an advert that the advertising department, which you've never seen and you definitely think doesn't exist, suddenly is too large for the items that you've written in your column, and again, everything gets trashed. And in those situations, this is not these aren't products. This was actually more slightly different reporting, but the concept is the same. You always need to have a plan B. You always need to know of a similar and just as good product as the one that you were just going to feature. It is, journalists are, so this is where they hate me, but slightly lazy and slightly out of ideas, probably because they're so overwhelmed with ideas that they don't know where to go next. What I'd say is, you know, if you don't, it's very easy, but if you don't tell someone what you do, they won't know. If I don't tell you right now that I speak 4 languages, not that it's relevant, you won't know. So it's very important to just constantly try and be in a communication with the journalists. they actually need more ideas than you realize. They scout Instagram, yes, as consumers. Yes, of course, they buy their candles and candlesticks for their family members there too. But they're also scouting ideas. I mean, up until the lockdown, I was writing quite a regular feature in the Daily Mail on interiors. And I mean, you know, very happy to put my hands up and say, we all do it. You know, you type in, so a couple of things could happen. Either I would write in a hashtag on Instagram, which I'd feel is relevant, and see how many brands come up with it, and whichever one came first, I'd think, oh, they look lovely. I'll contact them and say, oh, hi, Sally, I would love to write about you within my feature about concrete. Or I would get an email from a PR agency or one of you saying, we sell faux plants, faux flowers. And I think, oh, you know what, we haven't actually done that for a while. And then I would create a feature out of that one idea, and then I would look through Instagram for alternatives and similar products, and there's my feature. So there, you know, we need ideas. And also, the reason why I run this business is because I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. I have pitched 2 editors that have rejected things I've said. I've been pitched to by PR agents, and I know that it's about constantly sharing ideas. You know, you have to constantly tell people what you do. It is so important.
So how, as a brand, what's the best way for me to approach you, to reach out to you? What do you want to know from me? Do you want images? Do you want an introduction? Do you want a catalogue? How do I, as a brand, make sure that you feature me in these you know, whatever it is that you're looking for at that time, the trends or whatever?
Some of that's down to luck. But something I always tell my clients is, imagine you go to a wedding and you get put next to someone you don't know, and you get chatting, and they say, what do you do? And off you go with your little spiel about whatever. And then they turn around and they say, oh, actually, I'm the editor of the Financial Times How to Spend It magazine, which is not called How to Spend It anymore. But anyway, how interesting. Can I have your email? Now, that would be a direct pitch, which, of course, you wouldn't have known about. But the way that that person would have described their business with the pitfalls and the highs, peaks and troughs, the things you hate, the things you love, that is a proper pitch, because it's direct, it's honest, there's no fluffy, happy Monday stuff. I was wondering if maybe you could possibly, because I saw that maybe like, oh dear,
the apologetic kind of hunch.
No.
Yeah. In written form.
Terrible. Disaster. Never write Happy Friday, everyone. So it's difficult, but what I would say is you've got to be in it to win it, okay? So if you send a pitch to a journalist and they don't reply, it does happen, not because they hate you, probably because we've received so many bad pitches in the past, or time wasters, or things that literally do not have any relation to what you write about. I still get all sorts of emails about Hull being the city that likes its coffee really black, and I'm thinking, great, that's fantastic. But if you send pictures that don't get replied to, remember that when, as I said, a journalist thinks, okay, I need to find companies that sell concrete, because that's the idea that's come into my mind, I will search through my inbox and I will find you. You know, you will be in there. And that is when I decide, you know what, maybe this person can and I look at you thinking, please give me some quotes, because you've now fit the thing that my editor really wants. It is about being in it to win it. I can't think of a better phrase. You have to put yourself in contention. You have to tell them what you do. Being brilliant on Instagram is brilliant. Don't stop doing it. Aim for the top and be funny and dance and whatever you like to do and whatever works. But like a shop windows change all the time. They're dressed beautifully, they're dressed for Christmas, dressed for Easter. That's lovely. But let's just think about the shop window for a second. If you walk past that shop window, footfall is very important. But what happens if there isn't a shopper on that high street that day? That's where the online world has worked for retail in a big way, right? So think about your Instagram as a bit of the shop window. A great shop window is really appealing and attractive, and someone will come in. But what about the person who's not on Instagram? And so again, to my ball, there will be a journalist who's waiting for a great pitch. There'll be someone who'll be searching for it on Instagram. There will be lots of different opportunities that come from all of the opportunities that you try. And really, I would say, I have to say that, actually, this reminds me, I was going to say, my husband told me the other day that Woody Allen, his favourite person, has a very good quote, which is relatable now, which is that 80% of success is turning up. And I think that's so true of PR. You know, yes, there's 20% of luck. Yes, I will admit. A journalist might take to you, or you might walk past a shop and buy that bag and not the other person's bag, and that's life. But otherwise, if you don't step forward and say, this is who I am and this is what I do, a bit like I was just walking through Top Drawer, and the people who were coming out of their stand, their rectangle, were engaging with more people, because it's about sort of
putting yourself forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just one final question whilst we're just talking about this on that is, do journalists prefer links? Do they prefer actual images? Do they prefer press releases as a PDF or all in an email? Just share a bit nutsy-boltsy info with us.
Lots of journalists would answer in different ways. My answer is I would never send a press release. If you are a restaurant and you are opening another chain, or you're expanding your chain and you're a big outfit, I would say a press release is great because it's an announcement. It's an announcement. If you contact a journalist with a range of handbags that they've never seen before, or what you think they've never seen before, no, I would just be as direct as that wedding guest. You know, hello. I saw recently that you featured a range of beautiful X, and I would really like you to have a look at RetailFest, my brand, my handbag brand. And at the bottom, images. If a journalist wants to feature you, they will tell you, and they will contact you, and they will ask you. And in fact, 8 times out of 10, whatever you've sent is not appropriate because they want a different kind of shot, or they want, And I mean, a question I get asked a lot is, I've got lots of products under my brand umbrella. Which one do I send? And you see, and that usually, the answer to that is usually look at trends, think about your seasonality. Is there a story out there you can connect to one of your products? But also, you see, in that situation, a journalist might say, well, thank you for sending me your hats, but actually I looked at your website and I really like your bracelets. So images are a bit tricky. I wouldn't necessarily...
Links may be better.
Links and your Instagram handle. Because I think there's been a study saying that most people open everything on their phone.
Yes.
So it can go straight to your Instagram. Which is so depressing.
Yeah, kind of. Is it appropriate to approach journalists on Instagram or any other form of social media?
Yes, it's fine. Yeah. If they don't like it, what have you lost?
Yeah.
You didn't have them in the first place. No. You might as well try. A good way to decide that is whether they're very active on social media and their Instagram. If they are, then they probably, someone already 5 minutes ago has already emailed them, get pitching. Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah.
So just before we go to questions, I just want to ask, do you think, in your opinion, whilst we're talking about social media, that things will ever go back to how they were, where social media was, absolutely ruled, everything from, the social media to social commerce? What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. Social media is quite a big monster in the room as it is. Will it? Well, I hope we never have a lockdown ever again, of course. So hopefully social media does not have to play such a massive part. I think the answer is in the future of journalism and print journalism. The more that diminishes, the more people don't buy newspapers. I hope this week that there has been a huge uptick in newspaper purchasing because of wonderful photographs and the stories shared. Yeah. But I think as that goes down, other things will take more centre stage. But it's tricky, but I suppose if I can explain to you again this analogy a bit better, when you think about how people consume their information, you might have and I'm talking out of my hat, so it's a real generalization, but a 60-year-old man reads the Telegraph, the actual newspaper. His wife, I don't know her age, but she might consume simply the Sunday supplement of the Telegraph. And their son, who's at university, might just look at Telegraph online. Now, those three people will be looking at three different things. You know, the online item will not be in the paper. These days it isn't, because it's all roundups and really easily read things, because people don't tend to scroll too far. So it's a very different kind of feature. And the one in the paper will go on, I mean, you know, look at it and you think your eyes are going to pop out, and it's 3,000 words. So those two audiences are receiving two different bits of information, and I think, and so is the person in the middle who's looking. What did I say? Instagram online. Anyway, yes, Sunday supplements. So she's just looking at the magazine. So I would say social media will play a king in a really important part, connecting all those three things together. But until all of those three things disappear, you've got to think about all the customers at the end of every spike. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much. That kind of brings us to the end of our chat. We do have time for questions. If anybody has any questions for Priscilla, equally we're happy, Priscilla's happy to wait around for 10 minutes just to take some one-to-one questions. But I'd like to open it up to the floor if anybody does have any questions now. Anybody?
Can I share a question?
Oh, absolutely.
We have got one.
Hi, we've been featured in what we thought were subject-specific magazines and things before, but it's not translated into sales. Are we pitching to the wrong people? Are we not tracking it right? Is it that...
How much publicity did you get? I mean, how many pieces of print did you get?
Okay, so it's been a handful of pieces across... We're a niche company, and it's been within our niche.
Yep. Okay, so I think the answer to that is, if I were a social media expert or Instagram expert, I'd say, okay, so you've tried a lot of this. Have you tried that? That's what they'd say. And so I'd say exactly the same thing. Back to my ball. So I'm sure you haven't, and I know there isn't any time, it's not an accusation at all, but I'm sure you haven't tried everything. Yeah, so I would keep trying, because, and also, again, to my ball, PR, well, now it's flashing. PR is about how you look, okay? So it's everything. For some people, it will be enough to have confidence in your business and in you as a founder if you've received press. So if I see the word Telegraph, or if I see the word Sheer Lux on your site or anywhere on your Instagram, I'll think, oh, okay, I always buy via that, so they must be great. So it's about, that's why they always say businesses take a while to get going, because you are creating not only a perfect product, the perfect selling platform, the website, blah, 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 you're also building confidence. You want to inspire confidence all the time. But more specifically, I would say, if you're niche, go niche, speak to your audience, and really, really think about who your audience is and where they are. But then I would say, for example, I put up a reel yesterday on Instagram and did really, like in Instagram terms, badly, because you know everyone goes for the 20,000. That never happens to me. But I got 10 inquiries from it, and I don't even have 1,000 views on it. So sometimes a view doesn't make a sale. Do you see what I mean? So going for massive numbers doesn't mean it's going to do anything. It looks impressive. So it's kind of, it's chicken and egg. It's a little sort of, one piece of press might get you on This Morning on ITV, and another will just go on your website. You have to keep, I think it's just a constant, yeah, go on.
Is it still the case that you have to be seen, is it 7 to 12 times by people before they make a purchase? Is that like still the...
I've never heard of that.
Oh, have you not?
It just takes one person to be so interested they'll buy everything.
It's like, it's the positive reinforcement, isn't it, across different platforms as well, and keeping it...
It's inspiring confidence. That's what everyone has to do. You know, if you appear in a podcast about female founders, people will think, wow, this woman is really brilliant. Doesn't mean that the other person is not brilliant, but it makes you think that those cooked frozen meals can be taken on a staycation. It's about getting into the mind and psyche. So, yeah, we can talk afterwards if you like.
Any other questions? Yeah, Caroline over there.
Thanks. Hi there. I work in branding as well. I'm really interested in how what you've talked about translates to countering a negative story. Yeah. So once it's gone wrong, I'd love to keep it light and positive. Once it's gone wrong, do the same principles apply, and engaging with journalists to try and write that perhaps incorrect message? Have you got any advice in that space?
That goes slightly into reputation management, something else I do, but not necessarily in this context. Yeah. I mean, if you think of people who've done really lots of things wrong, the only thing you can do is start to build from the bottom. So much more, well, you've got to continue your positive messaging, and you have to seem humble. It's a bit like when someone asks you in an interview, give me 3 words that describe you. If you say you're stunning, they're not going to like you. But if you're humble about it, they might think, oh, that was an interesting choice of words. I think when you're righting a wrong, you've got to be very careful. It takes a completely different kind of strategy, but nothing can't be righted, as it were. You can improve something from the bottom again. Yeah. All hope is not lost.
Any other questions?
One question I'm always asked is, this was the subject of the reel that didn't do very well, which was, is that, should I pay for press? Because a lot of people say, right, so I've done the pitching and now they've come back to me and saying, you know, you can spend £400 to appear in my pages. The answer to that is always a fat no. Don't do it. It looks desperate. You don't need to do it. If it takes you 3 more months to get into the press, but in the editorial pages, that's much more worth it. So don't pay.
Absolutely. Quick question down here.
Hi there. Sort of related to what you just said, what's your view on like news distributors like Southwest News agencies that sort of take your story and try and push it out to journalists like yourself?
I think, again, thinking about my ball, every option is worth a go. What I would say is that actually today, maybe because of the economic situation, I don't know, but journalists love to hear directly from the business. It is so powerful. Because I suppose it's because for years we've been contacted by the third party who doesn't really know what's going on. There's no passion, there's no real understanding, and suddenly, if it comes from the person who's got to manage the staff, the targets, the everything, it just works so much better. So I wouldn't say don't do it, but actually, do you know, I think there's so, I mean, look, if you look at Top Drawer, I think the person who runs the business, founded it, whatever reason they started it, their story and how they sell it, it means you've got to juggle and wear a million hats, but, you know, that's 2022. So don't not do it. Sorry, it's a bit of an everything answer, but I think having you, whoever the founder is so key. So. Only you can sell it as well as you do.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, great. So Priscilla's just going to hang around for 10 minutes just to the side of the stage because we've got another session starting shortly. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Priscilla.